Test 1, 2.
Great. Okay. Yeah, so.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to ICAT Playdate. My name is Heather Johnson. I'm sitting in for Phyllis Newbill this morning. A quick reminder that we are streaming, so anything that you say is being recorded to an audience beyond this room. There are donuts and coffee. Please help yourself. And in a moment, I'll be passing around a sign-in sheet. Please sign in. It helps us pay for the donuts and coffee. If you are here for a PDN credit, you can see Holly. She will raise her hand. Perfect. Questions. We'll be taking questions after our short presentation online and in person. And I do have just two announcements. Drosera Obscura is in the Cube tomorrow from 12 to 3 p.m. It sounds very interesting. Animatronic puppets, music. Also, on November 15th is the Virginia Tech Science Festival, which I'm a big fan of. And if you know any children especially, it's so fun. All right, without further ado, I'll introduce our speakers. Today we have Gustavo Araos and Chris Campo-Bowen, Dr. Chris Campo-Bowen. They're gonna talk to us about their presentation, Open the Gates, Gaming Debuts, Cognitive Access Tools. Take it away.
All right, thank you very much. So as I was just introduced, my name is Chris Campo-Bowen, this is Gustavo, and we are two of the team members for Open the Gates Gaming. Our fearless leader, Elizabeth McLean, whose name is on the event, cannot be here today, but we are going to just give you a little intro to what the project is and what we're about, and also, we've done a number of these presentations for ICAT before, and we're very grateful to all of their support. So we wanted to showcase a little bit of what we've been doing over the past year and a half, basically, and where we are now. So just a little bit of an agenda then. First, just a little bit about our origins and our values as an organization, because we think it's always really important to reiterate these things. And then we want to talk about the kind of community and engagement side of our project, which is really what we've been focusing on for the past year or so. I want to talk a little about the playtesting we've done for our tools, which make tabletop role-playing games more accessible. And I'll show you a little bit of how that development has proceeded. I want to talk a little about the storytelling aspect of this, who gets to tell their stories, how we tell their stories, how people tell their own stories. And then we want to talk about our kind of events that we've been doing, most primarily a gaming convention called PAX East, which takes place in Boston, to talk a little bit about that, and then talk about how we're moving forward, different conventions, different events, and some industry partnerships. So, to get into a little bit of our origin, this project was born out of the needs of the local disability community, which during the pandemic really wanted to play D&D. A very well-known Dungeons & Dragons, right? A very well-known tabletop role-playing game that is also famously very complicated. And they were told, oh, well, you should play something else. This is too hard, or you should do something that's simpler, or you should dumb it down. And they're like, no, we want to play D&D. So this project came about to make that game easier to engage with without changing any of the mechanics, without changing any of the rules, making it more accessible to everyone. And not just people with disabilities, neurodivergence, things like that, but anybody who maybe doesn't have the time to wade through a, this thick rule book. We really wanted to make all of this more accessible in as many ways as we possibly could. And so now the project has expanded to thinking about access in games on a very broad scale, and not just in the sense of access around disability, but also access in terms of, as I mentioned, who gets to tell their stories, what kinds of stories get told, what kinds of people and places show up in games or are the basis for different games. And thanks in large part to funding from ICAT, this project has grown tremendously over the past year. We have now made all sorts of industry partnerships. We're traveling all around the country. And it's really, really, really exciting what we've been able to do and the kind of, partnerships we've been able to make, and the responses we've seen from community members, both here at Virginia Tech and elsewhere. So just to give you a sense then of our core values, one, we believe everyone is a storyteller. Doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what you know, everyone can tell stories. It's one of the things that makes us human. And we're here to ensure that everybody can do that. We believe that play is a human right. Everybody should be able to play. Play is a fundamental and important aspect, again, of being human. Being able to imagine new things, being able to enjoy imagining things, enjoy kind of something that turns off, you know, the critical parts of our brains that allows us to wonder, to imagine, all these kinds of things. Systems have to be flexible to be accessible, is another core value. This is, you know, very important in that rule systems are there for various reasons, but they can become very limiting very quickly. And so we believe you have to be flexible with how you approach systems in order to make sure that everybody can take part in whatever it is you're doing. There is no one hero's journey, with apologies to Joseph Campbell. Everybody can be a hero, and people's journeys look different. Heroes can take all shapes and sizes and forms, and the idea that it must be this singular figure who moves through the world and is independent of everything around them is, it's certainly false, if not dangerous, right? People are connected to each other, and the way that people move through the world, the way that they are heroic, can be very different. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, we look to those most impacted for leadership. This is how this project was born, right? The disabled community around Virginia Tech wanted to play something, and we responded to that desire. And one of the things we're really passionate about is listening to our communities, seeing what they want when it comes to games, when it comes to access, and trying to develop our project from there. So, with that then, that's a little bit about us in general. And as I mentioned, right, this project was born out of a desire for people to play D&D, and so that's been what we've primarily been working on. So I don't know, Gustavo, you want to take over?
Sure. So I'm sure a lot of people have heard of D&D, but I just wanted to give a little bit more context because while many people have heard of it, not everyone's super familiar with it. So D&D is a 51-year-old tabletop role-playing game. It is a collaborative storytelling game where there are no winners or losers. You sit down with a group of people around a table and you tell a story together. One of those players is the game master or dungeon master, and they sort of have the job of narrating and adjudicating the rules according to the framework, which, as we mentioned earlier, you can see this GIF going here. We're on page 300 something of the free rule set. There's a lot of stuff to know in order to sort of manage and navigate the shared world that you are in, and that is part of the responsibility of the thing. One of the cool things about it is that the game is currently published under a Creative Commons license, which allows people to create their own content for it freely without worry about copyright infringement to a certain extent, and then additionally, third-party publishers and Wizards of the Coast, the owner of the game, can also publish their own content, and that adds up to thousands, hundreds of thousands of pages of additional rules and concepts that you can sort of fold into the game as you want to. So it is a complicated thing to access. So that was, you know, a bit of context about our mission. So we started putting together these tools, and one of the chief things that we did was starting to do community engagement and playtesting around campus. So we invited Disability Forward Consulting to look at the feedback tools that we had made, and we started testing last year, which is about the time that I got involved with the project, doing some DMing for them. And we've tested with a number of groups on campus. We've done some playtesting in other locations, and we did a bunch of playtesting and sort of debuted the tools at PAX East, which is a pretty large gaming conference in Boston, as we mentioned earlier. So this is kind of the jumping off point for us. This is what Hasbro, owners of Wizards of the Coast, sort of provides people when they start playing the game. This is a pretty difficult and dense sort of form that you fill out and start sort of going from. So we went through and, yeah.
So just to add, right, like with the rules of D&D, you have a character, right? There's usually like a fantasy thing, like a wizard or a fighter or something like that. You have a bunch of statistics that represent your character. This sheet is designed to basically take all those statistics and make them readable, question mark, or at least be able to use them in the course of playing the game. Like you roll dice to kind of represent a certain randomizing element. Like let's say you wanna persuade me, the shopkeeper, that I should give you a discount on the potion you wanna buy. You could roll a die and see how high is the value, and oh, I'm pretty good at persuading people, let me add a number, and hey, I got an 18. That's a really good number, so yes, your persuasion check works, and you get a discount on this. So that's just one example of kind of how some of the math works. And this character sheet, it's very difficult to see, but there's a box here on the left side where you've got a list of things with circles next to them and lots of little lines. Those are all your skills, things like perception, animal handling, insight, sleight of hand, etc. And actually, does anybody want to roll a die to simulate this? I've got a big die here. Kevin, you want to toss a pillow? So, you're trying to persuade me that I should give you free stuff. And I will say you have a +2 bonus to your charisma, so why don't you roll that die and add 2? That's a 1. That's not good. That's a 20-sided die, so you can roll from 1 to 20. So that's a 3 on your persuasion check, which unfortunately is not enough. But here, I'll give you a die anyway. Consolation prize. Sometimes the dice tell the story in ways that you're not expecting. In any case, so this is just one aspect of the mechanics of D&D. So, like I said, this is very hard to access. It's very hard to read. So one of the first things we did was try and start to simplify. This is a sketch we did, or in fact, that's my terrible chicken scratch. But we did this during a meeting where we were all talking through, like, what do we need? And so we started with kind of this layout. Then we had some student graphic designers who came up with some of the image assets here, but you can see, right, some of the aspects from the previous sketch. But now you can also read everything. Everything is pretty visually accessible here. We made sure to pick colors that are colorblind friendly. And this tool, this character sheet that gives you kind of what you can do on one side is like exploration, skills, talking to people. The other side is when you get into fights with monsters, combat, things like that. And this is also color-coded to one of our other tools, which helps you kind of think about, when you're exploring, making decisions, things like that. And this is where it currently stands. After further iteration and playtesting, this is what the tool looks like. So you can see, right, we have skills, we have abilities, your inventory of your character, things like that. You have the combat side, which has some of the more mechanical aspects of the game, but all of this, formatted so it's more accessible, easier to use, and just easier for people to not worry so much about the mechanics, about the rules, about the number crunching, and instead just start telling a story. Because that's really the thing that we're after with this game, is being able to imagine new worlds, different ways of being, new and different stories, all that kind of thing. And so if you can get past the kind of worries about, the intensity of the rules, the math, all this stuff, then it's that much quicker to really get to the fun part, which is telling a collaborative story, or fighting monsters, depending on what you like. So with that then, just a little bit about the storytelling aspect of this. And this is part of my main role on this project. So I am, we call him the lead storyteller. But I write a lot of the adventures that people play through as part of Dungeons & Dragons. And so all of our play tests, I'm a professor in the music department, which is important context. All of our play tests use an adventure based on an opera by the composer Giacomo Puccini called Tosca, which is a pretty famous opera. It's a kind of melodramatic tale of lust and vengeance. But I rewrote bits of it and turned it into a adventure that players could kind of play through, encounter the characters, go through a version of the plot, and so on. And so this has been a big part of what I do with the project, is write these adventures, especially with relationship to opera, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But in other kinds of community engagement and storytelling we've done, we have been doing weekly Ask the D&D Professors live streams, which have been a lot of fun. Gustavo has joined us on those. We've done a lot of fundraising live streams, so both for Virginia Tech as part of Giving Day back in February. And then we've done some fundraising for one of our industry partners, a group called Dots RPG that makes Braille dice, among other kinds of accessibility tools. And so you can see there's a screenshot here from one such live stream which we did. I was running the game, Gustavo was one of the players, and we had a couple of special guests, Doug Cockle, who's the voice of the Witcher in the Witcher video games, and Amy Vorpal, who's a kind of well-known actor and player in kind of D&D spaces. And then, of course, there's Elizabeth. So in addition to opera adventures, I've also written some stuff. There's a very silly quest to save the Hokey Bird that I wrote for Giving Day, and something that I'm working on for the future, and in terms of what kinds of stories we hear, who gets to tell stories. I've written an adventure based on the legend of La Llorona, who is a figure in kind of Mesoamerican folklore and myth. So trying to kind of, move away from perhaps rather Eurocentric ways of thinking about adventures and heroes and so on. So all of these kind of community engagement things with the storytelling, with the playtesting, were kind of this was all happening in kind of the fall of 2024, leading into the spring. All the playtestings took place in the spring, and then at the end of the spring, we kind of put it all together and went to this big gaming convention, PAX East, which maybe talk a little bit about.
So PAX East is a pretty major industry gaming convention. It's one of 3 held by PAX that happen in the States. One is in Seattle, one is in Boston, and there's another one exclusively dedicated to sort of analog and tabletop gaming in Philadelphia. It draws thousands of people every day, tens of thousands of people every day. It fills up the entire Boston Convention Center. It's a pretty huge conference. So we had a table there at the Access Forward Gaming Lounge, and we were able to run games for people. And we talked to, I want to say, 2,000 or 3,000 people, and putting these tools in their hands and introducing them to them. We played some games there as well, but people were deeply moved when we put this in their hands, and we met a lot of industry partners, made connections with, I think we can, is that the next slide? So we met a lot of industry partners who were very excited to talk to us, but from there, it offered us a huge springboard. Additionally, in 2025, we also did the Open at the Source exhibit at ICAT. We're happy to be part of that. We did the ACLS Fellowship application for D&D Opera Adventure book, which was...
Yes, yeah. So I mentioned these opera adventures. I'm writing a book of adventures based on operas for D&D. There's a University of Michigan Press is interested in publishing this. They do a lot of kind of alternative format scholarly publishing, and I applied for an ACLS fellowship, which is a kind of very big 1-year buy yourself out and just write a book kind of fellowship. So hopefully that gets funded, and then this book can kind of come into the world a little more quickly. But yeah, so that's one of the things we were doing.
And then we're also working on developing new tools. Dungeons & Dragons released a new rule set, and we are adapting our current tools to the new rule set, so that's another project that we're working on. We're starting playtesting that. And we are going to do a 2-part event we did a 2-part event for the Pride Center, and it was awesome. We're presenting this at the American Musicological Society at the annual meeting, I think, which is like next week, in a week and a half. And then we're going to PAX Unplugged in Philadelphia to do the tabletop-centric convention there. We have academic publications planned for next year. We're going to hit PAX East again. We have potential collaborations with the VT Office of Sexual Violence Prevention, Education, and Expanding Development. Oh, and we are expanding development of access tools for card games. Oh, but yeah, because we're expanding to look at things like Magic the Gathering and Pokemon, the trading card game. And we are collaborating with Berklee College of Music and a number of other sort of institutions of higher education and other educational units.
Right, so just to wrap up then, we wanted to, so we've got a lot of stuff already happening, coming down the pipeline, but one thing we're very excited about is the number of kind of industry partnerships we've been able to cultivate through these conventions and through our work in this kind of game space. So one is Dots RPG. They're a group with which we are partnering at these big PAX conventions to run this Access Forward Gaming Lounge, which is a space devoted to tabletop games, board games, card games, any kind of game, but with the intention that it be as accessible as possible, have as many tools as possible, and so we're partnering with them to really make that happen. Nomnivore Games is a video game development company that focuses on kind of neurodivergence and access in that regard, and they've been super helpful with our tools. One of them is on our advisory board. Natural 6 D&D Actual Play Show is a group that plays D&D live online, and you can watch them play. And one of their members, Doug Cockle, is also on our advisory board. He's a VT alum, and like I mentioned before, he's the voice of the Witcher, Geralt of Rivia in the Witcher video games. Guardians Mental Health is an organization that is a nonprofit devoted to promoting mental health awareness in the kind of gaming, community gaming space, and they've taken one of our tools and included it in their kind of packet that they send people of, here's a bunch of mental health resources. Read Pop Events is the parent company that runs all of the PAX conventions. So they run PAX Unplugged, they run PAX East, all the rest of them. They are supporting us in part through paying for our hotel rooms for PAX Unplugged, which is rather a lot of money because it's in Philadelphia, and it's the same weekend as the Philadelphia Marathon, which seems like a poor bit of planning on their part, but who am I to criticize? And yeah, so they've been really, really great. We're partnering with a group called the PAX Together Intersections Gaming Library. I think I got that right, PTIGL, yes. And they work on kind of games that again, it's like there's a broad idea of access here with providing a space for people from different kinds of ethnic and racial backgrounds, sexual orientations, gender identities, all that kind of stuff, to have a space where they feel like they can show up as themselves. And then finally, we are, gets to see something very fancy, which is that we are under a non-disclosure agreement, but we are partnering with Wizards of the Coast and its parent company Hasbro to work on some things. Which is very, very exciting because they're the people that publish this game. So we're very excited about that. But yeah, so that's kind of an overview of our project and where it is. I don't know, anything to add?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting, and I think now we have a little bit of time for questions from the group. Yes. There's a mic coming for you.
What was the process like for getting feedback from the community that you were making these changes for at Tech?
Yeah, I mean, we would play games, and then we would set up surveys for them, and we had an IRB, and I think Chris can get into sort of the academic weeds of that, but but yeah, we had a sort of formal evaluation process for everyone who participated in it, and yeah, and so how many?
Yeah, we did, let's see, I think 5 or 6 total playtests. The first one we did was with the Disability Forward Research Consulting Group, which is part of the Disability Community Technology Center on campus, which is funded by the Mellon Foundation, and OTG is actually a kind of part of that as an umbrella organization. But Disability Forward Research Consulting pays disabled people to share their expertise, share their knowledge, and give anybody who wants it feedback about whatever. They consult about all sorts of things, and so we hosted a session where a bunch of people came and played D&D, and we paid them to do it, and they gave us a lot of valuable feedback in terms of visual accessibility, layout, things like that. So that was the kind of first big one. That was in August of last year, and then we did some more development, and then in the spring of this year, we had hosted 4 or 5 play tests with different groups, a couple of just public, anybody can come. We hosted one with the Disability Alliance and Caucus, which I think was our first one. And as Gustavo said, right, there's a kind of formal survey that we have them fill out before and after they play so that we can get a sense of kind of their familiarity with the game and then what they thought about the tools. So we did one with the DAC, we did one with Lavender House, and then 2 or 3 public ones after that. We've also kind of done somewhat more informal play testing when we go to conventions and things. People will see our tools and be like, oh, what about this, what about that? So all the 2,000 or 3,000 people we met at the PAX East table we had, there was some good feedback in there too. But yeah, thank you.
Curious if you had any negative feedback, like from some people who were like, no, the game's supposed to be difficult, it's supposed to be hard, that's part of it. Call them, I don't know, a traditionalist or someone that's stuffy, but I feel like any time we create opportunities for inclusion, there's always a few people who sometimes don't want that.
Yeah, we have not had, or at least I cannot remember a time where someone's come up and given us like directly negative feedback. We have had a lot of people who have been like, oh, I know people for whom this would be a problem kind of thing. But no one has said to our face, this is a bad idea, at least. I don't know, did you have?
We haven't gotten any specific negative feedback about the project and sort of its underlying intent. We have gotten some feedback, a lot of feedback of people who are less interested in Dungeons & Dragons specifically, and seeing if we are able to sort of make these tools for other systems, because there's a whole huge ecosystem sort of behind Dungeons & Dragons of games that are like it, that people really enjoy and deep dive on, but sometimes people have a little bit of a beef with the sort of popularity of Dungeons & Dragons.
Yeah, D&D is kind of the Yankees of tabletop role-playing games. Like, it's the big one, it's the one people know, it's the one that people play, which is, partially why we did it in the first place, right? Our local community wanted to play this game because it's the one that people do. But yeah, as Gustavo said, there's a whole ecosystem, thousands of different kinds of games, and different rule sets for those games. Like D&D uses this big 20-sided die for a lot of things. There's a different system that's a tabletop role-playing game where you kind of tell stories collaboratively, but it uses 2 cubic dice, 6-sided dice, for a lot of its roles. So, the math is different, the structure is different, the way it approaches storytelling is different. So, all of these different systems could have their own accessibility tools. So one thing that we also are really excited about, and for those watching online with streaming, if people are interested, we are happy to share our tools. We're happy to share the InDesign files if you want to adapt them for other systems. Because one thing we're very passionate about too is like the collaborative approach, making sure everybody has access to this stuff. I should also say, all of these tools are published open access under a Creative Commons license, so they will be free in perpetuity. We can't revoke that. And they're available for free to download on our website, which is openthegatesgaming.org. So anybody can take these things and do what they want with them. It's the kind of Creative Commons license where it's credit, you have to share alike, so you have to credit us if you're going to adapt it, and you can't sell it for commercial purposes. So yeah.
Wonderful. I think we're out of time. I want to thank our speakers. This is such a generous and collaborative project. If you would like to chat more with our speakers, you're welcome to stick around. Thanks so much.